Hello everyone and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, as you know, Lee Dahill. We've got Liza Daniels with us from the ValPal Network. We're going to be talking about some of the calling of vendor and landlords that Liza does on behalf of agents. But before we get into any of that, I want to hand over to you, Liza, to do a bit about you, background, and give the viewers something as an overview of yourself.
Great, thank you, Lee. The main thing to know is that I've been in property, mainly estate agency, residential sales and lettings, for the best part of 30 odd years. Started initially in estate agency in 1994, had my own agency in Southeast London for sort of over 20 years. Sold it as a going concern. It's still going, actually. So, everything sales and lettings related, I'm familiar with. I've dealt with it. Familiar with dealing with vendors, landlords, tenants, buyers, any sort of objections they have, any observations, anything like that. You get to a point where you've sort of heard everything. That's not to be arrogant, but it's just the way it is. After 30 odd years, then you're gonna become familiar with pretty much everything that is going to come up.
You are indeed. And I've got some of my questions are around speaking to vendors and landlords, because your role within what we do is a large part of speaking to agents, vendors and landlords. So what do you think the hardest thing is when you're calling agents leads?
Hardest thing is actually getting hold of people. People have busy lives. You're phoning people. If a phone number pops up on their mobile that they don't know, they're not familiar with, they won't always pick up the call. So what I often find, I do get through first time sometimes, but if I don't, then I think persistence is the key. To keep trying, because if you don't get through the first time, chances are you will get through eventually. But I will try sort of 4 or 5 times to get through to a prospect at different times of day, just to making sure that I'm giving it my absolute best shot at getting through. Because once I'm through to them, then every lead is an opportunity. So once I'm through, I can then sort of direct the conversation the way that I want it to go. In terms of booking in the valuation, whether it's for sales or for lettings. And I think, it's important to ask open questions, to get the prospect talking, so that, if you're asking yes, no questions, then that's a sure way to have the conversation end quicker than you want it to end. So it's about asking open questions, not are you planning to sell or are you planning to rent out your property, but it's more when are you, and to get an idea of sort of timescales and to get the conversation flowing that way.
And I know you said about you might try them, say, 4 or 5 different times of the day. Would you do that on, say, day one, or do you stagger that across, say, the week? How does it? What's your sort of advice there?
Yeah, well, speed to lead is obviously really important. So when a lead comes in, the idea is that I contact that lead as soon as I possibly can, so that they're going to be as hot as they can be. But if I don't get through to them, then I will try again the next day, or within a few days, just to make sure that the lead isn't going to just go cold. Well, for example, I would never leave it a week, say, before the first and the second calls. No, I'd leave it a day or two, and like I said, keep trying until I got through.
I think that's good advice, and I agree. I think if you leave them too long, people forget what they even made an inquiry for. And it is 100% on the speed to lead. And sometimes I think even if if someone fills in the form and say the morning to be contacted, and then you've still got the afternoon where you could try another courtesy. Look, just trying again in the afternoon, trying to get hold of you, because people appreciate if you want information, you want it fast. So I think that's
Yeah.
a very good advice. And I want to ask you on what are some of the things you do to make sure you get the most out of the call. So let's say we've called the first time, they didn't answer, we got through the second time. What would you do to get the most out of the conversation? Is there certain questions? Is there good questions you could ask?
Yeah, well, like I sort of mentioned before, open questions are really good because they get the person talking. So if they want to engage with you, and you soon know if they do want to engage, then asking open questions, what are your plans for your property, rather than do you have any plans to, sort of slight difference in anything that is going to get the person to speak and to give you information that you can then use to book in that valuation. So, conversation is key. And also, when the person starts talking, then that's my cue to stop talking, because, if they're indicating that they do want to engage with you and give you information, well, that's positive. So as soon as anyone starts talking, I will stop and let them speak. Or, initially at the beginning of the call, I'd introduce myself, say the agent that I'm calling for, the reason for my call, and then stop talking, to get them, to give them a second or two to digest who I am, where I'm calling from, why I'm calling, and then give them the chance to speak at that point as well.
Yeah, no, I like that. And is there any specific questions that you ask that you find a key one that an agent, we could give advice to, that agent should use?
Yeah, one question that I find really sort of effective, if you like, especially if a potential vendor or landlord is hesitant, about what they're going to do, or, taking the next step, saying to them, would it help if we was come and value your property in person? And then, you can often hear them pause to think about that. And then actually they will say, well, yeah, actually it would, if they were in sort of any doubts as to next steps. So that's quite a good one. Would it help if? And another question, I've talked about open questions, but in fact, a closing question is to ask, when can we come and value your property? So, that's a little bit different from saying, can we come and value it? Because that's a yes or no question. So when can we? So you're assuming the close, and you're just asking them, when is it convenient? You're assuming that they're okay to have you round. But yeah, a closing question works well as well.
And Lisa, I want to ask you about what are some of the best things you do to convert leads?
Well, like I said, asking the closed question of when is it convenient. So again, you're assuming the close, if you like. So when is it good? So that's probably the main thing. And sort of, if you get a feel for their sort of intentions, because, if someone wants to come onto the market ASAP, then obviously they're going to agree to a date and a time. But if they're not intending to do anything for, say, a few months or till next year, but even then, I would say, well, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Smith, and I would then set myself a task to give them a call back in the time scale that they had told me that they wanted to come onto the market. So, setting tasks, that's really important as well, calling people back when they want you to call them back, because quite often the valuations that I book in are from following up tasks rather than that initial phone call, or, during the initial couple of phone calls. So, that's quite important. In a way, those are sort of easy wins when you're following up tasks, because you've already had that contact with the person. So, it's not a cold call as such. You're sort of reintroducing yourself. So, and very often people say, well, yeah, I am ready. So, yeah, please come round. So, yeah, sort of setting tasks, that's quite an important thing.
And can you give them advice on things like, would you like to book in a call with our mortgage advisor, and things like that?
Yeah, again, sort of asking about their financial position and like obviously asking their permission, if it's all right with you, I'll get our financial advisor to give you a call. And sort of keep
Mm,
it light, just because they're probably more likely to say, well, yeah, that's okay. If you're just sort of linking the two, well, we'll come and value your property, but also we'll also get our financial advisor to give you a call. So again,
yes, it's
it's
helpful.
almost part of the same question, if you like. Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. And then I've got a question for you. My final question is around your 30 years of being in the industry, and you've possibly come across some strange conversations. What do you think the strangest conversation you've had with a lead that you've spoken to?
Well, more recently,
Yep.
actually, because my sole job now is to just ring leads and book in valuations.
Yep.
That's just I've got one job to do, and that is it.
Yeah,
So on a Friday afternoon when I'm making calls, people often answer, "Make me a winner," because a radio station is running a competition. They've been running it for ages, where they give away. Well, at the minute it's up to about 500 grand actually, and they
yeah.
give that away on a Friday afternoon. So quite often I've had people answering, "Make me a winner," because they think, sadly, that I'm ringing to offer them £500,000. I wish I was. That'd make me
Yeah.
really popular. So, so
Do
yeah. I mean, I'll just say, look, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I'm calling because you filled in an online valuation form. So sorry.
Make
So
me a
yeah,
winner. Oh, that's
yeah,
brilliant. That's brilliant. I can see how they would do that, because if they answered it hello and it was make me a winner, and then
exactly.
they've gone, oh no. So you've
Yeah,
got to go and make me a winner.
yeah. I mean, one of these days I might play along with it, but no, that'd be too cruel, wouldn't it?
That would be way too cruel. Way too cruel.
Yeah.
But there we go.
So
Well, Lisa, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for
thank
sharing
you.
some of your insights and tips. And I think that's brilliant on Make Me a Winner. I think that's how we end the show.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.